On the 10 tonight, it has been 1 week since Tiffany Carroll was denied parole in a tight vote. The Greenwood mom of 5 is currently serving a 15-year sentence after she pled guilty but mentally ill to voluntary manslaughter in 2019 and the death of her boyfriend Jamal Johnson. But since then, her loved ones and recently lawmakers have pushed for her release, saying she was a victim of abuse. Now, Carroll needed a 2/3 majority to be granted parole, with 3 voting in favor and 2 against. Now, one of the votes against parole cited a letter from the Greenwood Police Chief is why he voted the way he did.
Fox Carolina's Zach Perletsky joining us live in the studio tonight, showing us why the chief is now changing his stance on Carroll's parole. Zach?
Well, Tori and Dana, Greenwood Police Chief TJ Shadowan initially told me last week he did not remember writing a letter advocating against parole for Tiffany Carroll. But after that hearing was done, Shadowan sent a letter to the parole board acknowledging he did write a letter last year, but now says he believes Carroll should be released. For the second straight year, Tiffany Carroll was denied parole and a chance to come home to her family.
I just can't think of a person better suited to be released early or more appropriate to grant parole than her.
There was less than 30 minutes of testimony last Wednesday and only a few minutes of deliberation before the vote was taken.
I'm not sure if there was anybody from the upstate that I'm aware of who opposed her release.
During deliberations, Frank D. Weidman, who said the violence of the crime concerned him, cited a letter from Greenwood's police chief before he voted to deny parole.
I see where the police chief, he's in favor of denying parole due to the violence of the situation. And we'll stay with no.
Despite originally telling Fox Carolina he never wrote a letter, Chief TJ Shadowan says he did send a letter in June of 2022 to recommend denying parole on Carroll's first appearance, something he said is common practice in the department. Shadowan says he was never informed of this latest hearing. In a letter sent to the parole board after the vote and shared with Fox Carolina, he said in part, quote, "During my initial denial, I did not have much of the evidence that had been presented to myself, Representative McCravy, and Solicitor Stumbo." Shadowan tells us while the first letter was referenced in deliberations, he now supports Carroll's parole, saying in part, quote, "I cannot foresee that if Mrs. Carroll should be released, she would be a danger to society. She has tremendous support from family and our community, which is crucial for a person to succeed after being released back into society." Now, it's unclear how those 2 no votes would have gone if this letter by the police chief was sent before the hearing. Carroll is eligible for parole once again next September, although her attorney Travis Moore filed a motion for the board to reconsider its denial, citing, among other things, only 5 members being present at the hearing, a lack of witnesses being able to testify, and the board not reaching out to the sentencing judge. Now, Moore tells me he has been informed that the motion was received, but no word on where it goes from there. For now, reporting, Zach Perletsky, Fox Carolina News.